Yes.
Okay, do you want to stand up with Rod?
Okay. So thank you for listening for a couple minutes here. And the video is actually from a rapper named Mr. Fab. 2016, there was 50th anniversary of the Black Panthers. And there was a big rally downtown in Francogawa Plaza. And Mr. Fab was one of the speakers there. And there's two things that he speaks about that really stand out in his speech. And I should note also as well that a curse word is used, and my apologies for that.
East Oakland time.
That's right.
Older guys got to talk to the young guys. The young guys got to respect that. If I say, hello, ma'am, how you doing? And she do me like this. You young niggas is crazy. We're not going to go far. We're not going to go far. Because it's funny how we'll see a white person and already, hey, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. How you doing? Yes, sir. But you're not going to get up at Bart for this lady who just came in and walked in. You're not going to let this elderly lady sit there? I don't care what color she is. You got to respect life. We got to respect us. Then it goes to say we got to respect each other as humans because we got to live together. We got to be here. Our children have to go to school together. We have to talk, we have to teach, we have to communicate. We have to understand that it still takes a village to raise a child. We still have to understand that this is our city and everything is changing. The Raiders leaving, that don't just mean for sports, that means jobs. The Warriors leaving, that's just not sports, that's jobs. These are communities. These are in some of the worst parts of the city. Libby forgetting to turn in a certain thing to get 2 million jobs for these kids for the summer. That $2 million worth of jobs, that's something. A police chief and captain, that's not somebody from the city of Oakland that's not being allowed to be a captain of the police because they say it's conflict of interest. We got to understand they want out-of-towners to come patrol us because they don't understand our life, they don't understand our conduct, they don't understand our daily activities, so they're going to profile us. That means they're going to pull us over, they're going to bother us, they're going to jump out. They're going to plant stuff on us. They don't understand us. They from Minneapolis. They don't understand the natural now that goes on in our city. And they don't understand our language. They don't understand our diction, our code, our work, our talks. We have to watch out for us. The Hillary and Trump, that's already what it is. That's what it is. They bought that, whatever that is. But these local ballots, we have to understand what's going on in our local ballots. Because all of the things that we complain about, these are the things that we can change. We have to implement the ideologies that we wish to see in this world. And it starts on a local board. We need to know what's going on, what propositions, what bills, what acts they're trying to slide under us. We got a couple weeks to make a change in our city, man, for this voting. And when I suggest that you guys do something that takes a change for your city, care about your city. My name is Mr. Fab, man, and I represent Oakland, California.
Okay, and this here is the mission statement of the East Oakland Times. The East Oakland Times is a creative endeavor focused on initiating dynamic discussion, social action, and political action to help establish a much-needed life culture and to ground our cities, counties, states, and nation in the principles of life, freedom, and tolerance that can guide us out of the current path of demise. So the East Oakland Times agrees with what Mr. Fab said. Life, respecting life, the dignity of life, and also to work locally. And my name is T.O. Macdonald, founder and chief editor of the East Oakland Times. In 2018, I spent 7.5 weeks, 40-hour weeks, on the phone with inmates. I visited 5 California prisons. I've visited over 10 death row inmates, and I'm on the visiting bill of over 25 inmates. Additionally, and I had 120 inmates on my Christmas list. So I've been involved with the prisons for the past 3 years, and this is the story of how that came about, how I got to this place, how I founded the East Oakland Times. So back in 2007, I was an instructor for Oakland Unified. And as an instructor for Oakland Unified, in adult education, you go to many different places. I was out in East Oakland a lot. And I call it Deep East Oakland if you're past the 60s, in the avenues. So Castlemont, Youth Uprising, Acts Full Gospel, what else? Madison Elementary School. I was teaching out there. And I could see, while I was out there, interacting with the students, working with great teachers, really teachers that loved what they were doing. At the time, this was before the recession, so things were good. And it was a great, great working environment. However, I could see that what was being proposed and what was happening with, kind of a top-down effort would never make the change happen that we're speaking about here at St. Columba's Church. So, and additionally, in conjunction with seeing that government efforts by itself in this isolated area would not bring about enough change. Additionally, at the time, there was 120 murders around 2006. So every day you'd see a new person's face in the paper, and it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. At that time, I met Lorraine Taylor. Lorraine Taylor is the mother who lost 2 children, and she established a group for grieving mothers. Both of her sons were shot, and we met in 2006. So my mind was on it. My mind was on what to do in Oakland. Fast forward to 2011, the recession's going, and I'm able to go to a Berkeley City College to study what's called multimedia arts. That is video, film, sound design, all these different aspects of multimedia. And so I got the tools, the power to make something happen. I'm back in East Oakland teaching at Youth Uprising. That's about, what is it? That's off of MacArthur, I don't know, a little bit before 90th. And I'm teaching out there, and I'm saying I'm going to do something. So I start filming. I start handing out little flyers about the fact that the murder rates have gone down. And my whole goal at that time is to extend care and compassion, extend love. I think the first step is a healing step. So that's what I was trying to do, but it was a tough build, right? Nothing was going on in terms of enough progress. So what I decided to do was get involved with inmates, which is to say that my goal was to create change, and one aspect of inner city life that is a constant is the criminal justice system. And I didn't have much experience with writing inmates, engaging with inmates. So I had a student of mine who was sentenced to life in prison for murder. His case was on America's Most Wanted, and I wrote him. And he wrote me back, and that encouraged me. So then what I did next was I was on the Ella Baker Center website, and I saw some articles by people from San Quentin News, and I wrote them, and they wrote me back. So I got more feedback and encouragement from the responses. Eventually, I ended up creating these little flyers, these little postcards right here. This whole stack of postcards right here have been our responses from inmates at San Quentin. And what the question was what name should be put on a publication that I'm thinking of creating? Now this was kind of a gimmick, right? It had a stamp on it. All they had to do was make an X in reply. But that reply brought about a relationship with many, many people. And from there was born more or less my involvement with prison inmates. And since then I've expanded in terms of my relationships. I now have been to the female prison, I've been to the female death row, and I kind of did that in the same way of sending out a sort of mass letter, getting back feedback. Now, the initial creative effort that came about through my engagement with inmates was a zine, Z-I-N-E, that was made to be distributed on the streets of East Oakland, and everyone here can have one. And it's a zine that puts forth care and concern. It is inmate stories and an introduction. There's a prayer, and the whole thing is geared towards Black Americans in East Oakland. And that was the point of it. The point of it is that there's a unique reality that has faced Black Americans for some time. And so what this was a message of care and concern from writers. All the writers of it are Black Americans. And that has been distributed by hand to over 200 people on the streets of East Oakland. And it's called Rehabilitation. I'll give you each one. So after producing, I'm just kind of like going pretty fast, but after producing that zine, I realized that I need to continue this work. I need to produce something else that will provide finances, and that is called the My Crime series. And the My Crime series, what the My Crime series is about is inmate stories written by inmates on inmates. So every writer of the My Crime series, in these My Crime series books, and right now there's 5 of them listed, was written by an inmate, and the subject is an inmate. Every writer was paid, every subject was paid. I sought out the writers because through my network and through my connections, just was able to meet good writers, people who are interested in writing. And this is right there. This is a little dedication, or this is what says what the My Crime series is about. The My Crime series proposes to candidly communicate the upbringing, life experience, character, and motivations of the incarcerated. The purpose of such communication is to grant the broader public an understanding of the men and women in California prisons. So the purpose of the My Crime series, and this right here is the story of CJ. And CJ, in fact, is a transgender woman incarcerated at San Quentin, and her story is called Holler at Your Girl. And it tells the story of her growing up in Kern County, and around 20 or so, this is in the 80s and 90s, and around 20 or so, she got involved with prostitution and drug abuse. And this is her life, and it shows inside and outside, inside of prison and outside of prison, her life. There's another book, which is another LGBTQ book, called Holler at Your Girl. That's the Hood to Heels. Hood to Heels. And this story is about a gang member, LA Crip, and full-blown involved with gang life from infancy. Everyone's from infancy. That's the reality. And went to prison, in prison, transitioned to a woman. There's 5 stories. The first story is called Spinner's story. His story is a life of addiction, beginning at age 6. by age 12, he's in prison. And by age 10, he's using, cocaine, mushrooms, LSD, all of it. Yeah. Now, book 4 is called Mouthpiece, and book 4 is about a pimp from Richmond, and it's another just from the bottom up, living that lifestyle. And the final book is called 38 Years Later, and it's a book about a man who was convicted in 1980 of a robbery kidnap, and his life in prison. And it's a deep story because he goes through a lot in prison, including drug addiction. So that's a very deep story. All of them are good. All of them I recommend. And that is one offering that the East Oakland Times is promoting. And part of the reason why I wanted to give this talk is because what I've done with these books is built a platform. This is a new stage for me in promoting the platform. But this platform came out of nothing. It came out of direct effort. It came out of hustle. It came out of talking 7 40-hour weeks on the telephone with inmates. And that's what I'm here to present is the East Oakland Times in its current manifestation, and give a little background story as how it came into being. I do have one more book out, which is a death row book, and this book is called The Learning Curve, and it's written with Johnny Dwayne Miles, who's on death row. It is his poetry, and it is his collages. If you click in the middle, you're able to look at the other collages. So those arrows to the right. If you turn down the volume. Yes. So Johnny Miles wrote a poem for every collage. There's 15 collages. He's a remarkable poet. And in the book, there are the book does not include the collages because for a variety of reasons. So these are free at Miles Dynasty to download or look at, and can listen to Johnny Miles talking. And in the book are the poems that go with the collages, plus overview writings on each collage, describing each collage. And the book is called The Learning Curve, Johnny Miles Poetry, Collage, Poetry, and Mind. And that's on Amazon. And before we conclude, before we answer question and answer, I want to read a little excerpt from the book. And this is from the introduction. And this concerns inner city inner city life. Johnny Miles grew up where punches are thrown, knives are used, and guns are shot. He lived where crack cocaine was born and bled out Black American neighborhoods. He knows the dissipation that results from discarded needles, bottles, and pipes. These descriptions of Black American inner city life have been heard countless times before. When we admit that inner city Black America has been left to cultural death and actual death, we can call ourselves honest. We know this as much as we know not to visit the Black American inner city. We know this as much as we know that the constant homicides found in Section B of the daily newspaper will not end. We know this as much as we condone Black American teens being convicted and sentenced to a lifetime in prison for street-level crimes. We know this when reading that abortion rates in Black American communities exceed birth rates. The Black American inner city is a meme to Americans who do not know it. There are crying mothers, angry gangsters, and shepherd-like pastors trying to move Black Americans in the direction of never again. Nonetheless, never again never ends. I am not categorically labeling East Oakland or Compton, Johnny Miles is from Compton, or Compton as without life. What I'm saying is that the gravest threats to Black American community health do not move nor preoccupy the broader public. East Oakland is as far from adjoining communities as East Timor. Further, the effort to benefit Black American communities by the government will not accomplish the goal. The conclusion being that the struggle continues for Black Americans to rise to health and wealth from the ashes of slavery. So that's my presentation. I have free zines, which are the books that were handed on the streets. And I have the My Crime series books also, and they are available. You know, the single books are available for any cash donation. And I have all 5 books in a book as well. Johnny Miles' Learning Curve is not presently available. Oh, finally, the Johnny Miles' Learning Curve is dedicated to the life of Father Eric Freed. Father Eric Freed was a Catholic priest who was murdered, and he was the priest who oversaw my wedding.
Oh, amen.
Yeah. Yes, every writer's paid per word, and we negotiate. So I negotiate with everybody. We sign contracts, and every subject is paid, but they're paid on a flat rate. So everything's negotiated, and everyone voluntarily participates. Yeah, and I want to go off of what was stated earlier, that interacting is enough. I think just in my interactions, I learned. And that was the challenge that I wanted to present in this talk, was that interact. You know, don't worry about anything else. Just take the choice to do as you said, to say hi to the person who looks down and out, or these different types of things. To have a mentality of, I'm the one who's going to bring about the beloved community by the way I live. Yes, yes. Right now there's five on that website, 6 for sale. I have 4 in the can. At least 3 in the works. The idea is to produce at least 20, so that way it feels like it covers, it's comprehensive in terms of the types of criminality, the origins of the people who commit the crimes, the reasons. So the idea is to create, and these are really great books for young adults. They're really good for young adults. Yeah. And they'd enjoy them. Yes, that's a good question, because it's a thorough process. Each subject fills out a questionnaire, a yes and no questionnaire, and that questionnaire was designed in-house. And then from the basis of the questionnaire, we produce essay questions that the subjects answer. The writer gets both the questionnaire and the subject's responses, and then interviews the subject directly, works with the subject directly, and from that produces the book. They send it to me, we go through an editing process. Sometimes it might be a complete, revision, often. And then we just keep on, working it out. One thing that wasn't shown on the website is, if you click the Learn More, there are actual interviews with the people, with all the subjects, so you can listen to, get a sense of who they are from their voices and everything. That is through a process of sort of editorial selections. and trial and error. I have people who they signed on to write. 6 months, I haven't heard from them, and they send me a manuscript. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And no one has, people everyone who I commit to for the project, for making a biography. And some people have dropped off. I'd say it's about 50-50. Yeah. Yes. Everyone's different. Each person's different. I have a book coming out called Brookfield Jungle, and this is from deep East Oakland. And this boy, he grew up, a young man. He grew up, both of his parents were crack cocaine users, so he grew up around crack cocaine, and then he became a crack cocaine dealer, and as a crack involved with the crack cocaine life and gangs and everything, and running with the guys who are really about all that. He ended up killing someone at 16, and he's been in prison for 10 years. And for him, and for the majority, all they do is say thank you, no doubt. That's the majority. The majority, everything that they say is, this has been a blessing. And that can be heard in the thoroughness of their responses in the interviews. They don't shy away from any questions, and they lay it on the line, in the hopes of doing something redemptive. And I have to say that San Quentin, as a prison goes, is most aligned with a rehabilitation than any other prison I'm aware of. Yes. Yes, and to understand the incentives that brought it all about, the circumstances. And for me, that's the thing that really makes these stories poignant, is the realities that the persons who are incarcerated faced and lived through and experienced are so just outside of the normal that I'm seeing, that I think I would say a lot of people know that it's eye-opening, and it probably, in my mind, would turn people more towards rehabilitative, at least the citizens, voting citizens, more towards a rehabilitative mind frame than punitive, which we already know. We already have seen what punitive does. Yes. Well, it goes along the same lines as what was stated earlier, was interaction. The second is that it's possible to build something out of nothing. This has been built just by, human effort, my effort, others' efforts. And, I think the most thing is probably the dignity of life needs to be pushed. And what I say that is, the East Oakland Times has three tenets. One is the dignity of life. The other is tolerance, which is to say, we'll live and let live type of principle. And the other is liberty, which is to say that people can do what they want to do, more or less, as long as they're not harming others. Now, I would say, find your core principles and stick to those core principles. But I think the core principle that here in a church needs to be espoused is life, and how precious it is, and that all our rights are based off of the human being's dignity, and to in any way possible, support life. That's all I can say for now. Thank you.